support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces, scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has said Britain stands ready to support Japan after a major earthquake rocked the country today. At least 6 people are dead after Japan was hit by several earthquakes, resulting in evacuations and tsunami warnings. Emergency services have been responding to multiple fires and up to 30 collapsed buildings after a 7.6 magnitude quake hit the centre of the country. Tens of thousands of people have been left without power, and evacuation orders remain in place for coastal areas, although all tsunami warnings issued earlier today have been downgraded to an advisory. Smaller tsunami waves have hit the coastline, but no damage has been reported from nuclear power plants along the Sea of Japan. An official from the country's meteorological agency says more earthquakes are expected. A teenage boy who died after being stabbed on New Year's Eve in London has been named as Harry Pittman. The 16-year-old was pronounced dead shortly before midnight in Primrose Hill, a popular viewpoint where families had gathered to watch the fireworks. A male has been arrested on suspicion of murder and is in police custody. Officers have said Primrose Hill was particularly busy at the time of the incident. A woman accused of murdering 2 of her children in the United States has appeared in a British court. Kimberly Singler's 9-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son were found dead in a residential property in Colorado, along with her 11-year-old daughter, who was injured but alive. The woman initially collaborated with the investigation, but later reportedly disappeared after an arrest warrant was issued for murder charges. She escaped to the UK and was apprehended by the National Crime Agency in West London. Almost 30,000 migrants crossed the Channel to Britain in small boats last year. That's down by almost a third on the number of crossings from 2022, although it's the second largest total since numbers were first published 6 years ago. No attempts to cross the Channel have taken place since mid-December because of bad weather. And thousands gathered on the streets of central London today to ring in the new year with the one and only pop singer Chesney Hawkes greeted spectators along the 2-mile route with dancers and brass bands. Families even witnessed a brief invasion.
Gangnam Style.
The 2024 parade, which started in 1987, marched from Green Park to the Palace of Westminster. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on your digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. Happy New Year. I'm Nick Dixon, taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour. And I'm joined by the only two comedians in a fit state to appear on the telly today. It's Josh Howie. There he is.
Oh, going on, Josh Howie. I like that.
Yeah. I was trying to sound enthusiastic, even though you're here every day. And, of course, Francis Foster. There he is.
Yeah, it's just a natural reaction.
It's like the football scores.
Yeah,
Josh
exactly.
Howie, 3, Francis Foster, 0.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Sorry. That's just the way it felt. Lads, any New Year's resolutions?
Yep.
Go on.
This year, on the bench press, I'm going to get to £30.
Nice.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go with like a joke one, but that's your actual one.
Yeah.
What are you on now?
It's £30. I don't know. I actually don't know what the weight. What is?
You're going to try and do a bench press.
I was going to do a bench press.
85 kg is my max for about 5. It's not that impressive, but it's a lot better than whatever you can do.
Okay.
Francis, any?
I'm just going to get absolutely ripped, mate. Just
ripped?
get on. Yeah, just going to get on the juice and just
steroid usage.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Just surprised you're not already on steroids?
No, well, I should be, mate.
How do you explain that rage?
Well, that is true, mate. It's called Twitter.
Okay. No one's asking me about mine.
Sorry,
but
mate.
What was yours?
I haven't got any because I've given up all
You
hope.
should start a podcast this year.
Yeah.
Well, I got $1.2 million last year on the Weekly Skeptic.
You and Toby.
Funny that you asked.
It's Toby's
I wasn't going to bring it up. Anyway, it's far too much banter. I'm so sorry to the entire nation. Let's crack on and do some headlines. How about that? So let's have a look at the Daily Mail. So they have first police probe into virtual rape. The Telegraph go with record number of deaths amid NHS strikes. The Mirror has We Want Election. Fairly self-explanatory. The Daily Express, PM, relentless action is stopping illegal migration. iNews, Red Sea rebel attacks set to drive up food prices in the UK. And, of course, the Daily Star, Dart Throb, which is about darts players and how good they are or aren't in bed. And those are your front pages. So what have the Mirror gone with, Josh?
Yeah, we want election.
Yeah.
Britain vote demand. This is 2/3 of the public want election by the summer at the latest. It seems like Rishi is holding out to the winter and the idea that he would turn it around. Good luck. But only 3% of people want
election, not an election. One election.
Yeah.
If you just say we want election, you shouldn't be allowed to vote because your IQ is too low.
Well, this is the Mirror trying to save space.
Oh, I see.
To get their picture. Yeah, we want election. It's. I mean, I don't know. Should he just get it over and done with? Is it going to make it worse now? Is he going to turn it around?
Well, this is the Mirror. Let's be fair. It's a poll for the Mirror, by the Mirror. You know, it's all very Mirror vibes. Basically, we want Sunak out. What do you think, though, Francis? Does he have any chance left? Does it matter when he holds it?
This is what I think about the general election. I don't think he's got a chance. I think Labour will win, but I don't think that it is going to be in the huge majority a lot of people are anticipating. People think that actually everyone is going to flock from Conservative to Labour, whilst ignoring the fact the collapse of the Red Wall happened for a very real reason, which is complete dissatisfaction with the Labour Party and thinking that Labour Party despise working class people, which of course we know they all do.
That is true, but I do think it's going to be a big gap because more than half of the people who voted Conservative in 2019 are now going to vote Labour.
It's a certain percentage will vote Reform, and a certain percentage will stay home, won't they?
Yeah.
So there is that.
And it's also just talking about how the majority of the country just think that unfortunately life is worse now under Tories.
It does seem that way, although it's not going to be any. It's going to be still much worse, I maintain, under Labour. We'll get into that later, but it's going to be even worse. I think Sunak should have just gone with Dominic Cummings and just done anything he could as a curveball. You know, he had those meetings with Cummings. Why not do something? Because he hasn't done enough, has he? He's like, he doesn't realise he's already in injury time, and he's still like knocking the ball around the midfield. Just to use an analogy fans will understand.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest with you, the hand that he was dealt with was particularly brutal. Yes. Particularly post-pandemic. Is there anything that he could have...
He was part of that, though.
Yeah, he was part of it. Is there anything that he actually could have done in order to facilitate a Conservative victory? I don't think there is. I think their time has come.
Yeah. He would have been a decent manager of a perfect country.
It's always cyclical anyway.
Yeah.
It was like the Labour was in for 13 years and then Tories have been. But there is something quite interesting here, talking about what people consider the most important issues. The majority think it's cost of living crisis and NHS. That makes a lot of sense. Only 15% think immigration is the big issue.
In the Mirror, whereas in the country, I've heard that immigration's gone to #1 from #3. So I think in the country...
Is that your poll?
No.
So we've got to take everybody's poll.
Matt Goodwin did a poll that had it at #3, but then I heard that it had gone even higher and it had gone to 1 or 2. I'd be very surprised if it's not higher.
I don't know if I trust
not in the Mirror, of course. That's the Mirror.
Well, this isn't in the Mirror. It's a poll that they did.
Okay. So. All right, well, let's move on. That's enough propaganda for me. Let's do the Telegraph, Francis.
Yeah, so the Telegraph have gone with actually a really heartbreaking story. Record numbers of excess deaths amid NHS strikes. So junior doctors are going to walk out for 6 days. That is 6 days without a huge swathe of junior doctors. And here's some stats from last year, 2023. Nearly 53,000 more people died in 2023 than normal. This is the highest figure recorded in a non-pandemic year since World War II. Yeah. It's absolutely heartbreaking. You're looking at this, the record numbers of deaths. It's awful. And when you think actually that a significant number of these come from 25s and unders.
Wow.
It's so sad when you look at the lives that have been wasted. It's appalling.
What are the main factors? Because every year we have an NHS crisis. Famously, we see a headline every year. Yeah. But then you've also got the strikes. Then you've also got COVID. And this excludes 2020, but it does include 2021, which was still heavily impacted by COVID. So is that also...
So they say it's cardiac and heart-related issues, respiratory infections and diabetes seem to be. But, yeah, this is damning because... You know, Rishi can make one of his 5 pledges to bring down the waiting list, which he hasn't. You know, but this is even worse. More people are dying. Like, significantly more people are dying. Yeah. And is that lack of investment? Is that partly the strikes as well? I mean, I'm sure there are a bunch of factors, and they don't all lie at his door, but it's not the sign of doing the job well.
No, and another thing Cummings wanted was mass NHS reform. What about this other one about chatbots? You want to briefly look at that?
No, this is actually a really interesting story. So what this is talking about is new terror laws needed to tackle rise of the radicalising AI chatbots. Now, under current terrorism laws, it's only human beings that can be charged with terrorism. And what we've seen with the rise of AI is AI chatbots that are essentially spreading far-right or Islamist propaganda and radicalising people online. One of them is called Abu Mohammed al-Adna, who was described in his chatbot profile as a senior leader of the Islamic State. So what this chatbot does is it basically it radicalises people. Now there is a question: if you get radicalised by a chatbot, are you a moron? The answer is probably yes.
People who get radicalised generally tend to be morons anyway.
Yeah, it's true. But it is impressive, on the other hand, to rise that high in an organisation. That's the first AI to be that high in an organisation, right? To be whatever that title he had. Anything on this, Josh? We've got loads of stories. You don't have to, but...
No, it just, but it's more like this, the guy, Jonathan Hall, he's sort of seeking it out somewhat as well. But there is definitely a gap there, and obviously we've just finally, after a long time, the online safety bill went through, and already it seems like it's out of date.
You know, my favourite is James Mason, another one of these chatbots, whose profile is honest, racist and anti-Semitic.
Nice.
So he just sounds like a Labour MP, doesn't he?
Shots fired. All right, what about the Daily Mail, Josh?
OK, this is a weird one. First police probe into virtual rape. Now, this story is actually a couple of months old. There was a young woman under 16 who was on virtual reality in a video game and her character was attacked by a bunch of avatars. So they're saying that she's suffered from abuse, like she's suffered from trauma because of it. Of course, now there is a I hesitate to say a comical element to this, like you lift the VCR set off. But at the same time, when you have real life rape going on, and there was a terrible article today about how it's just the conviction rates have just gone like halved over the last few years, from already historically low to even lower. So it sort of feels like, where are the resources going to the real stuff?
Yeah, that's true. So we've got terrorist chatbots and virtual rape, Francis.
Yeah, exactly. It's a brave new world, mate. Welcome to 2024.
Yeah.
The thing that I don't understand about this, OK, I was reading the article, it's obviously awful, but what is the difference between someone doing this kind of, having this kind of virtual reality character and taking part in a fight? Does that therefore mean that is assault?
What, like an online virtual?
Yeah.
Well, the point of those things is fighting, isn't it?
Yeah. So what is the difference?
It's a strange one. I'm just glad that I'm a geek who doesn't go on virtual media or anything like that.
Surely a geek is somebody who does go in virtual.
No, but I'm like a traditional board game.
Old geek.
Yeah. Warhammer.
All right, well, that is it for part one. But coming up, trouble in the Red Sea. Kemi Badenoch is on the rise, and our obligatory We Hate Sadiq Khan story. See you in a minute.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, still here with Josh Howie and Francis Foster, and we're crushing 2024 so far, I must say. Let's get straight into it with the eye and trouble in the Red Sea. Sounds like a Billy Joel lyric, Josh.
You're showing your...
Yeah, board games and Billy Joel, that is our demographic.
UK intervention in Red Sea, a dangerous move, says analysts. So this is one analyst, an international affairs expert, has warned. The Houthi rebels are targeting cargo that are going through. They're saying it's because of any that have any connection to Israel, but actually their motto is death to the West and death to America and death to Jews or whatever.
Great guys.
Great guys,
top lads.
Great guys who are, by the way, being supported. I don't know if you saw the footage, like, in like a New York Times Square of, like, people with the Houthi headbands, and it's like...
And you don't mean the band Houthi and the Blowfish? That's another old reference.
So that's insane. These are not good guys, but the idea is that the reason why this person's saying that it is risky is because it could escalate into a sort of wider Middle Eastern war, I guess. But the thing is, I would argue that the real danger is not standing up to them, because they're backed by Iran. It just allows or gives permission for Iran to behave even worse. And frankly, you have to stand up to these bullies. And I think that when the UK voted against involving itself in Syria, when he gassed his local population, I feel like that then just gave carte blanche, and then 500,000 people got killed.
OK, I'm glad you got a take on this, because I didn't really understand it. Do you have anything on this, Francis?
Well, I think what we're seeing really is, as America and the power of America is slowly receding, what we're seeing is these types of groups become emboldened and suddenly feel that they can actually, challenge America's hegemony and start local wars, and we're seeing it happen all over the globe.
So what you're essentially saying is it's Joe Biden's fault?
Yes,
That's what I'm
exactly.
hearing.
Yeah, but good thing is that he won't remember his mistakes.
Great point. He'll just go around the White House naked, attacking dogs in the night. if you believe the Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson interview, which some don't. But all right, let's move on then. I've got to give balance, Josh. Let's do the eye then. And a private security firm of ex-Marines is being brought in to tackle illegal immigration. Basically, Jack Reacher is going to stop the boats, Francis.
Well, this is a very interesting story, and it's so the Home Office have hired this private military firm, and these private military firms are run and staffed by former soldiers, former intelligence officers, very, very high level. They tend to work in things like the Israel-Hamas war or the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But our situation when it comes to illegal immigration is so dire that essentially we're going to get the SAS in to try and stop the illegal boats.
Is it a bad idea, though? I mean, the Care for Calais are calling it shirking responsibility, but isn't it just sort of pragmatic?
No,
I mean, I don't trust anything public. I only trust private. You want it done properly, go private.
Yeah, no. It's nothing to do with accountability, like the Care for Calais thing is saying. It's about capability, and it's damning in terms of the fact that our government has to hire in an external organisation to do what our security services and our police force should be doing. That's what's damning, and the idea that we need to seek outside help and pay other people. You know, they're giving the reasons here. This company doesn't have anything to do with the Israel-Hamas war, but an MI6 intelligence official basically said, "Oh, we're really busy at the moment because we've got the Israel-Hamas and we've got Ukraine and the small boats, and we're beyond capacity." It's like, wow, if we can't cope with those three issues by ourselves and deal with this. And also, like, to what level are they going to actually contribute? And also this article makes a big deal about how, or the company makes a big deal how it uses AI in its efforts. Like, that's, like, going to stop the boats. AI is going to stop the boats, basically. It's ridiculous.
Part of me agrees it is sort of embarrassing. But I also think anything to just stop the boats, right? I mean, if it works, why not?
Yeah, I'm in absolute agreement with you. But I think Josh's point is actually valid. I never thought I'd say those words. And what it is, disappointingly so, and what it actually says is that our institutions are no longer fit for purpose.
But don't anarchists believe this? You've had Michael Malice on your podcast. He basically says the police force are flawed inherently. It should all be sort of private. Is there anything wrong with it, or is it everything just being private security, and wouldn't it be more efficient?
I'm very, very uncomfortable at having a private police force.
And also intelligence service.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want a private intelligence.
No, it is weird. OK, let's move on and do the Mail, and Josh is choking.
It's all right.
Ramifications of that story.
He's overcome with emotion at the fact he's doing a show with me. It's all right, mate.
You got a small
750,000 subscribers on YouTube.
You've got a small board game piece stuck in his story. Let's do the Mail, if Josh is ready. And is Kemi Badenoch the future of your favourite party, Josh? Which is the Tories, is the joke there. See?
Good one.
High-level
Business Secretary Kemi Badenoch tops the Conservative poll to become the next party leader after Rishi Sunak. Now, this is a Daily Mail poll, so you can't believe it, can you?
Good point.
But yeah, she is a whopping 38% of the vote. This is them, the Mail doing the Conservative members. And she's at 38%. The next number two is on 23%, Penny Mordaunt. So I think that the Tory MPs made a big mistake not allowing Kemi Badenoch to go to the members' vote last year. Because she could well have won, and
maybe that's what they were worried about.
The Tories would be in a better position, arguably today, because to my mind, she is one of the best politicians in the country in terms of being forthright, clear in her communication. The only thing I'd say about her, as a negative, apart from being Conservative, is that I don't know much else about her. On the trans issue, she's been very
aligned with you.
Forthright, and because I don't see the trans issue as a left-right issue. But in terms of what her economic policies are, how she would turn around the country and whatnot, I don't know anything else what she stands for.
Well, she tends to be the choice of the right of the party, but now even the One Nation side are saying that she has some appeal because she's been reasonable on this bonfire of EU laws, where they wanted to scrap all the EU laws. She was like, no, let's do it slowly, let's be sensible. So she's pragmatic, but she's also called herself the child of Roger Scruton and Thomas Sowell, so she's ideologically conservative. What do you think, Francis? Do you like Kemi?
What I think this shows with Kemi is that the power of the culture war, because Kemi has come to prominence because of the culture war, because she is unashamed and unabashed at dealing with it and actually speaking common sense. When you look at our political class, even somebody like Keir Starmer, about 6 months ago, didn't know what a woman was. So when you have someone like that, it just shows actually that if people are going to come out and say things that we all knew to be true 2 years ago, that means that you can actually stand a very real chance of winning a general election.
It cuts through. And the other thing she's been good at is fighting, and I know you love using the word blob, whatever, but fighting the intransigent ideology within her own department. And she's shown that it exists, and she has actually taken steps to deal with it.
I just wonder if she's radical enough in terms of what the Tories need, because it's funny that 18, backed Nigel Farage. He's not even there. He's not even eligible in this poll. So people still want Farage, even though he's not even part of the Tories. So I think maybe, that's where it's going to go. Because is it enough to have a Kemi? She's great. I like Kemi. Very smart. But is it enough, given what a state the Tories are in, or is she more of a sort of semi-continuity candidate?
Look, I think the problems invariably are nothing. You can replace a leader and that will do something. But at the moment, I think we can all agree that the Conservative Party are not fit for purpose. And we need to clean out a whole swathe of people within that party if we're going to have any chance of them actually being Conservative.
And I'd just like to say, PMQs with her, Kemi, against Keir Starmer, you know, he'd have to up his game because he doesn't have that direct communication that she has.
And she has the advantage of not being a straight white man, so she's allowed to tell the truth about things.
Well, you know what? Shame you said that, because we could have just got through the whole thing
because you were talking about,
her
I know, it is relevant, though, because she's going up against Starmer in what you just said. And
I thought it was quite nice that we didn't mention anything.
Well, I think it's quite nice that I did mention it.
Yeah,
as a joke,
no, I don't see colour, so...
No, because it is true that it is, you know, you can't get away with saying anything as a straight white man, whereas other people in the identity politics hierarchy have more leeway. Everyone knows that. But let's do The Guardian with the obligatory Michelle Mone story, Francis.
Well, yes. I mean, Michelle Mone's husband says couple are being hung out to dry by ministers. The disgraced Conservative peer, Michelle Mone, and her husband are being investigated by the UK's National Crime Agency. They're being sued by the UK government for £122 million for breach of contract and unjust enrichment. So the interesting thing is, though, they are saying, hang on a second, the only reason that we are getting sued by the government is so the government and therefore deflecting attention away from their own disastrous handling of the pandemic. We are being made scapegoats. It's not our fault, honestly, despite the fact that her husband received more than 60 million quid in profits. There have been instances where Michelle Mone has actually said statements and then had to retract them. It's not looking good.
Well, it's two wrongs don't make a right. The government was terrible. It seems like, 9 billion they've written off of PPE out of the 13 billion that was the massive overspend there. So he's right that the government was terrible in its procurement procedures, but also they have made a lot of money, and she personally has made millions, 30 million or something like that. They made 60 million profit, or the cut, you know, it's like, and he's trying to say, oh yeah, and it's in line with everybody else made loads, like millions of profits. Well, they shouldn't have. You know, that doesn't mean what you're a good guy here. And by the way, there is a very funny bit where he's defending her and he's saying, no, of course they would come to her because, you know, Michelle, she's had 25 years experience in sourcing and manufacturing and mass-produced goods and new first-hand and logistical knickers. Knickers, mate. Don't try and write that. No, don't mention the actual product there.
Yes,
knickers.
good point. All right, well, just before the break, let's have a look at the Express. And we want to start the new year, much as we ended the last, having a pop at Sadiq Khan, Josh.
Yeah, Sadiq Khan...
if you want to.
No, roasted in brutal Sky News clash on New Year's Eve. Where's the achievement? So he was being interviewed. They were doing the fireworks and whatnot. I think we got 1 million yesterday. We got 1 million viewers. Anyway, whatever. But the point is, by Sky News' Mark Austin, and he said, you know, we've had a brilliant year. They're humbled by the things that we've achieved together. And the journalist said, well, like, you know, knife crime robbery has risen by a third. Where's the achievement in that? And he's right. And then we have this terrible story about the teenage 16-year-old boy who was in Primrose Hill in North London who was murdered by a knife. And it's scary. My son, my 14-year-old, was out with some friends yesterday. It's terrifying. And he hasn't got to grips with it. Look, the blame, of course, is not solely on him, but what has he really done? And he's trying to be like, oh, a knife crime under 25s has gone down and this and that.
Injuries.
Well, it's gone up for the rest of us, mate.
Yes.
So
those injured under 25 with a knife has gone down. It's very specific. He's looking for stats, you feel. And he's also blaming the manufacturers for phone robberies, saying they shouldn't function. What about if the police did something? I had my phone snatched. The police did nothing. You call, they do nothing. You email, they don't even reply. Maybe that's the answer, Sadiq, not so much the manufacturers making them obsolete. What do you think, Francis?
Look, to me, this is just a sign that Sadiq Khan is not fit for purpose as mayor. When you have this happening, and with knife crime absolutely out of control in our city, he doesn't seem to want or feel any need to address it. Or be honest about the problem.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, or be honest about the problem. Well, if you're never going to discuss it honestly, how are you going to solve it?
Yeah, and by the way, Greater Manchester, there's been a 16% drop. In West Midlands, there's been a 5% drop. And look, he gets racist abuse. I see it on Twitter. He gets genuine, I don't agree with the word Islamophobia, but there is definite bigotry towards him as a Muslim and his ethnicity and whatnot. But at the same time, He's rubbish. He's just rubbish.
Attack him as an individual and the job he's done.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, that is it for part 2, but coming up, scandal in the police, and Gary Lineker does an annoying social media post. Same stories, different year. See you in 2 minutes.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's crack on with the eye. And a new counter-terror scheme will target eco-protesters, which is good, but also vaccine skeptics, which is bad. I always like to offer balance, Francis.
Yes. So there's a lot of experts who feel the decision to include left-wing, anarchist and single-issue ideologies in Prevent may have been politically motivated. So all of these groups have been now lumped in. And what a lot of people are saying is this actually fair? Because do they pose as much threat as other particular organisations? And it's interesting that they say that, but when you look at the disruption that some of these groups cause, for instance, if you think of Just Stop Oil, or you know, XR, all of this, is this actually fair and rational? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I was sort of joking, but I was sort of serious, because things like lockdown protests are very important. You don't want some authoritarian government. At the same time, you have to do something about these Just Stop Oil nutters who disrupt everything.
It's not just the Just Stop Oil people. There's a bunch of cranks out there. The guy was sentenced to 6.5 years in January to 23 for preparing terrorist acts, trying to blow up target, transmitter masts. You know, there are people who sort of the 5G thing or whatever. So those people are out there. The cranks are out there. They need to be dealt with it. But the question is, where's the real threat coming from? Well, there's threats from right-wing, and then there's threats, obviously, and it mentions here, jihadist extremists, who are 80% of the investigation. admissions, yet only make up 22% of the referrals. Which means that another 80% of those referrals are for things like this, the right way, and also whatever, but actually turn out to not have any substance to them. So that is interesting in and of itself. How many things are then going by the wayside because they're not being reported?
Yeah, we had this absurd situation where Prevent were worried about Shakespeare and Jacob Rees-Mogg more than Islamist violence, and then they've tried to... I guess it's a continued attempt to try and address that kind of thing. I don't know if it's going to work.
You know, look, violence of any kind towards any element of our society, of course they need to be investigated wherever it comes from.
Okay.
You know, but you just have to be real about, like, where the majority of the stuff is coming from.
Sounds pretty racist to me, Josh.
Yes. Well, you said what's the real threat, and the answer is, of course, 5G.
Yeah.
Let's do the Telegraph now and a glimpse of the Labour dystopia that you're about to vote in, Josh.
Labour Council will check companies' LGBT credentials before hiring. Now, in all seriousness, I'm glad that stories like this are being covered, and I'm glad that we're storing stuff, because Keir Starmer needs to get to grips on this ridiculous element within his party before he comes into power, before they waste a hell of a lot of money on spending. Now, this is just one council, Camden Council, particularly woke council, and they're basically saying for their procurement process, because they're in a position of power, they want to promote greater inclusion. Well, what does that mean? LGBT, what does that mean, LGBT inclusion values? It means these companies that, you know, a sanitation department or company has to, like, have to prove that it's LGBT inclusive. Well, it's like, no, prove you're not bigots, prove you're not homophobic, fine. But to prove that you're inclusive and you're then, hiring people that maybe aren't necessarily
disagree with you. Listen,
good for the
I
job.
am not going to hire an electrician unless I know that he's had sex with a man. Just not going to do it. It's not going to do it, mate. Don't darken my threshold.
AC/DC?
Yeah, exactly. Don't do it.
Is that a euphemism when you say don't darken my threshold? I mean, they're partnering with Stonewall and they're having things like trans awareness sessions and a Bi Visibility Day.
It's a waste of
bi people
our
invisible?
money.
Yes, they are.
Taxpayers' money. And this needs to be, we need to get to grips on this. And if Starmer came out and somehow dealt with this kind of stuff and went to that council and went, you know what, this is a waste of money, you should be working on getting value for money for the taxpayers, he would get thousands more votes.
Maybe if the man who came to fix your dishwasher was gay, you wouldn't have these problems. There were these disgusting views,
I
George.
fix my own dishwasher.
Yes. Now, there's a euphemism.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, look, he's done very well on anti-Semitism, but I do worry about Starmer. He is a Pabloite, which is a subset of Trotskyism. He does have quite a radical left-wing background people don't know about. I question whether... I think he's actually going to be full woke.
But this isn't him. This is the party.
This is the party, but you're saying he needs to get a grip of it.
Elements of the party.
Does he have the will to get a grip of it, or is he secretly a bit woke, or not that secretly? He did kneel for Black Lives Matter.
Look, you have to give Starmer credit for the way that he dealt with the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. He was absolutely...
And his position on Israel.
He was absolutely ruthless with the way he did it. He transformed Labour. Maybe... we're not giving him the credit he deserves.
Well, I'm worried. That's what I'm saying. Let's do the I. And when I heard about the police on steroids, I thought it was referring to a special, extra tough version of the police. But sadly, no, it's just what it says on the tin, Francis.
Well, yeah, there have been at least 12 internal investigations since 2018 where officers were found to be taking steroids. So with half of them coming to light in the past couple of years. And what's actually happened in this case is... there's a lot of police officers, they want to look big, and they're also worried because you're quite literally on the front line. You're dealing with some of the worst people in society. You want to look tough, and also you want to look great in a T-shirt on a Friday night. And so they've been taking steroids, and police are doing random drug checks, and some of these people are now failing it. I'll be honest with you, I would prefer a policeman to be on steroids than looking at the state of some policemen where they're so out of shape.
They need to be pumped up.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe if you took some roids, you'd be able to run a bit quicker.
But do you want some guy who's, has got access to a gun, whatever, and then he's got roid rage and whatnot, and there's like Wayne Cousins, there's like alluding to the fact...
Well, no one actually knows whether Wayne Cousins...
Well, they don't, but they said he had big arms or whatever, and someone else said, oh yeah, it could be up to like 50% of cops do it. That is slightly terrifying. The side effects are quite serious, until I was like... It was like balding.
Yeah.
It was... erectile dysfunction,
mood swings,
small penis, and I was like,
Labour.
I have all of this. I was like, I'm going to start.
You may as well take it. It's a no-brainer. All right, let's do the Express then. And Gary Lineker has done another opinion, Josh.
Yeah, pathetic. 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 BBC shame for snubbing MP's simple Gary Lineker request over social media slur. So Gary Lineker, this is Jonathan Gullis or whatever. He's the MP for Stoke-on-Trent North, and he quote tweeted Lineker, and Lineker tweeted back saying, "Oh, hasn't he read the new guidelines, or should I say, had somebody read them to him?"
Had someone read them to him. Your reading's a bit off.
But the point is, and then he got all offended, like, he's saying I can't read.
Right.
So I think they're both coming out a little bit.
To him.
Exactly. So they're both coming out a little bit pathetic here. But according to the guidelines, it does say that you're not allowed to criticise the character of an individual politician in the UK. But it doesn't say anything about, like, saying that they're illiterate.
Yeah, well,
is that their character, or is that just...
or is that just their education? Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I do feel for the ordinary BBC staff, Francis, who would just have to put up with Gary Lineker sort of swanning around doing what he wants while they're trying to be impartial and run a tight ship. What do you think?
Well, what it does is it undermines the BBC, because the BBC are meant to be this impartial organisation. They're not meant to take political sides, and yet you see their most prominent presenters who are overtly political. It makes a mockery of the entire thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a problem with being overtly political. Just be honest about it. That's the issue that I have. They're meant to be, and then they're not.
Yeah, and, of course, the licence fee. If it wasn't for the licence fee, they could do what they want.
I paid that today.
Did you?
Yeah.
What a sucker.
You don't pay it?
I'm not saying that for a second.
Yeah.
I'm just making a little joke. Satirical content on the TV.
Okay.
It's called satirical content. So you paid it. How much is it these days? I know, of course.
159.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, but you get great value for money.
Don't pay it?
Of course I pay it, Josh.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Wow. Yeah, he
I'm
loves
taking you
it.
to court
He loves
for
the
defamation.
BBC.
I pay it twice.
Yeah.
Because I really... I like them. I've got friends in the BBC. Great people. Great people. We love the BBC, but we will have to continue to attack them throughout the year. That's part 3 in the bag, but coming up in the final section, Stalin centres, body moons and rampant misogyny. That last one's not a story. We just mean Francis will still be here. See you in a minute.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's crack on with the Times. And GB News is once again crushing the BBC into oblivion. Hey, we don't write the stories, we just stick to the facts, Francis.
Well, the GB News is actually doing incredibly well.
Actually?
It is,
Actually.
it is. Because there is this narrative, you know, that the channel is failing. But more than half of Conservative members say they regularly watch the right-leaning network, far outstripping ITN and Sky News as a source of news for the Tory grassroots. And what GB News have done so well is that they spotted a gap in the market. They realised that there were subjects that the mainstream media were afraid to touch, or if they did touch upon them, they weren't going to do it honestly. Things like illegal immigration, whereby if you even mentioned it, somehow that meant that you were far right. GB News has actually spoken about it and discussed the topic in depth. And there's a real demand for it. So I personally think that this is a very good thing. You know, there were people from all over the political spectrum who come on. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. The more the merrier. It's brilliant for our ecosystem, our delicate ecosystem.
Delicate broadcast ecology.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, who'd have thought telling the truth and representing people would pay off? I mean, but let's be very clear, it is, of course, amongst Conservative members, so it's, you know, it's limited.
Well,
and they call it a right-leaning network. I object to that because we're regulated by Ofcom, so we have to be pretty neutral, but go on.
Yeah, but that's the problem, is the narrative is if you put on right-leaning people, then that means that it's a right-leaning... And they also say later on that it's all about, like, Farage's show is a very successful show, but it's not the only part of the channel. We have our breakfast show, that's very successful. That's not right-leaning at all. We have Headliners, this is balanced, right, left, whatever.
Andrew Doyle's a lefty with
Andrew
a
Doyle,
show.
Free Speech Nation. So this idea that the channel is right-wing, what I would be interested to see is how many Labour supporters watch the channel. Now, it's obviously going to be less than Conservative, but that's because I think there's a rebalance here of Conservative voters not feeling that they were listened to or have been listened to traditionally. And so maybe things have gone too far, I don't know, too many Labour, whatever. But the point is, we're doing something right. People are watching us, and we're having an impact on people, you know, on people on the larger opinions here. And there are lots of things that we talk about, as you're saying, trans, immigration, the COVID response, whatever. These are not left-right issues. These are issues that are outside of that traditional linear politics.
All right, great speech. You've got the job. Let's do this one in the Telegraph. And Russia is building Stalin centres. This is the best idea I've heard since Hitler's soft play, Josh.
Russia builds Stalin centres to restore reputation of the dictator. This dictator who's responsible for 6 million deaths and mass murderer. And Putin's a big fan, and basically he's using it to reinvent Star Wars or whitewash him or whatever you want to call it.
To boost his popularity, weirdly.
To boost his popularity and the war of Ukraine. And, you know, look, Stalin and Russia...
He's had an allergic reaction to Stalin.
Because this happens every time we mention Stalin.
Yeah, every time he mentions Stalin, it's a virtue signal.
Where's Hitler?
Why do you keep on going to be drinking? Listen to me, look, if I drink...
Say the words Hitler, I bet you'll be fine. I bet you'll be fine. I bet you'll be fine if you say the word Hitler.
You're my ventriloquy sax.
So, what this shows, it's Putin trying to galvanise the Russian public because it has been a long, bloody and brutal war, particularly when Putin himself thought it was going to be very, very easy. The Ukraine war was going to be over in a matter of months. It hasn't turned out that way, and he needs to do something in order to galvanise the Russian people and create a narrative that, just like Stalin, they are fighting the Nazis.
Yeah, bring back the old favourites like Rod Stewart popping up to sing a song at New Year or something.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you want him to sing Hot Legs or whatever he sings.
One tiny little point is that there's a lot of plaques that have been taken away that sort of commemorate the people murdered by Stalin, and these are sort of mysteriously disappearing across Russia.
No one likes fake news,
well,
Josh.
Stalin knew a thing or two about mysterious disappearances as well. Good link there, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's do The Guardian. And the band Green Day take a brave and controversial stand in the music industry by saying they don't like Donald Trump. So punk, Francis.
It is so punk. Now, there was talks about getting rid of this article, and I actually think this is one of the most important articles in the actual set, and I'll explain why. Because as we're nearing to another election in the United States, I think Donald Trump will run. They're doing everything possible in order to discredit him, in order to stop him from running, which I believe is anti-democratic. But what you're going to see as a result of Trump running is the culture war being inflamed again. And what is going to happen is people are going to start commenting. People are going to start commenting about politics, in my opinion, in a cynical way, which is what Green Day are doing, in order to create a notoriety about their band and about their latest release. And they're going to release a new album described as an invitation into Green Day's brain later this month. So for me, this is a very, very cynical way of trying to garner attention.
Yeah, and just to be clear, they changed lyrics from American Idiot to I'm not part of the MAGA agenda. And it's very much like Eminem had a go at Trump. It's like a band that used to be kind of edgy, and now instead of like remaining edgy, like John Lydon from the Sex Pistols has remained edgy by backing Brexit and backing Trump, which is more interesting. Whereas just to stick with your old lefty things and, you know, it's not edgy anymore to do this. What do you think?
Yeah, I just think it's a bit pathetic. I'm not a fan of Trump, but at the same time, I think it's lame and did its job, didn't it? Now here we are. This was in New York and their New Year's Eve, and now here we are talking about it in the UK.
Yeah, job done. Yeah, you're right. And they are a great band, though. Aside from that, let's do the Times. And if you thought weddings were annoying, wait till you hear about buddy moons.
Oh my God! Newlyweds opt for buddy moons, where everyone's invited. Now the real story here is about destination weddings. So when you're going away and paying thousands of pounds for whatever, it's like people are going to stick around. You're not just going to go for one evening. You're going to go for a week to Sri Lanka or wherever it is that you're doing it. So that's really what's going on here. But people are sort of saying, like the experts are sort of saying, oh, it's great because then you get to be with the people you love, and you know there's plenty of time later to be alone together. No, there isn't, because then you have kids and then you're never alone again. This is when I'm alone. Yeah. This is the most alone I get to be with you, with with a million people watching this.
It's sick and wrong. My tactic,
probably.
Francis, when people are having a destination wedding is I say, tell you what, let's just not be friends anymore. Yeah. I save the money, just never see them again, and it works quite well. What do you think the buddy moons?
I don't like it. I find it the height of entitlement. Why don't you give up 4 days of your holiday and just over $1,000 to come and fly halfway around the world to come and see me get married, when the reality is it's probably going to last about 4 years. I remember my mate...
Do you get asked to do a lot of best man speeches?
yeah. I remember one of my friends actually was getting married in Japan, and I actually said to him, mate, I can't really afford it at the moment. I'll come to the next one.
Legend.
Nice.
And...
Do you have a lot of friends?
He ended up getting divorced and getting remarried to a Chinese woman. He has a type.
Point is,
but,
you're right.
But what I'm saying is...
in 2 seconds. Yeah. Can you say it in 2 seconds?
Yeah, what I can say is he did get remarried.
OK. Well, that's the show, guys. Thanks very much. Let's have another quick look at Tuesday's front pages. So the Daily Mail has first police probe into virtual rape. The Telegraph has record number of deaths amid NHS strikes. The Mirror, we want election. The Daily Express, PM relentless action is stopping illegal migration. The iNews, Red Sea rebel attacks set to drive up food prices in the UK. And the Daily Star with Dart Throb. And those were your front pages. That's it for tonight's show. Thanks to Josh and Francis. Headlines is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. If you're watching at 5 a.m, then stay tuned for breakfast. Have a great 2024 and God bless.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. I'm Jonathan Thortree here for GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. 2023 was a wetter than average year for the vast majority of us, and 2024 has started off on a relatively similar theme. We've got this band of rain sweeping its way across the majority of the UK. We'll start falling as snow over higher ground areas of Scotland as it pushes into colder air ahead of it. Some travel disruption is possible overnight, with strong winds developing across southern coastal areas of England and for Shetland and Orkney as well. Temperatures in the south will be relatively mild, dropping down to around 11-12 degrees Celsius, but some frost is possible for Scotland first thing on Tuesday. That band of rain will push its way northwards, eventually stalling across the far northern Isles. Other southern eastern areas should see some brighter spells developing for the bank holiday here, but there's more rain on the cards for England, Wales, perhaps into the far southeast of Northern Ireland, eventually spreading into the far south of Scotland as well. So some localised flooding is possible during Tuesday. Temperatures generally ranging between 8 and 13 degrees Celsius, but probably feeling colder due to the strength of the winds. One of those areas of low pressure does eventually clear its way off towards the continent, but we've got another one that is lingering to northwest of the UK as we head into Wednesday, still with some persistent rainfall for parts of Shetland and Orkney, some strong gales here as well. Further brisk westerly winds pushing in showers for the rest of the UK. Most of those showers frequent in the west and heavy at times, some brighter spells perhaps for eastern areas. Showers turning fewer and further between as we head to the second half of the week. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Carson, this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.